going on, everybody? Welcome back to the ILLMented Reviews. I am your host, Mood616, and thank you once again for stopping in, guys. Yes, episode 15, coming at you live and direct. And yes, we are going to take it to the UK. Well, with a UK release of a Japanese film from 1968 from Radiance Films. Radiance Films is actually like an offshoot of Arrow Video. A couple of the guys that have left Arrow Video in the UK went and did their own thing. So these releases are pretty much in the vein of Arrow Video. They're kind of presented like that and stuff. So the quality is going to be about what Arrow Video kind of puts out and stuff like that. So if you don't know anything about Radiance Films. Anyways, the film in question here is a film from 1968, Japanese film called Big Time Gambling Boss. Yes, Big Time Gambling Boss, not Gaming Boss. So yeah, right here you can tell it very much kind of looks like an Arrow release. Kind of cool. But yeah, Radiance Films, this is number 12. So I think they've been putting out stuff for about the last year and a half, something like that. So yeah, give them a shot. So Big Time Gambling Boss from 1968, Japan. This is a Toei film. And it's like an Yakuza film. Kind of done a lot differently, though. So, getting into the premise, the synopsis of the film here. Basically, what we have is we have this boss of this Yakuza gang, and in the beginning of the film, he falls ill. He has a stroke and stuff, and he can't talk, and he pretty much just cannot run his crew anymore. He can't run his gang anymore. So, what they do is the leaders of all the crews, they get together, and they vote to put this one guy in charge, but he declines because he says that he's not from the area. He wasn't born. It's kind of like, the Italian mafia and stuff. If you're not full-blown Italian, you can't be made. Kind of the same thing, even though these guys probably should know those rules, these internal rules, but so he's not born, he's not from the area, so he actually can't be a boss. And anyway, so he basically says that, he recommends that another character, Matsuka, should be crowned boss at this point. But the thing is, he's in jail. So these guys say, no, we can't do that. We need a boss right now. We have to pass him over. And because he's in jail, of course. And so they appoint like the son-in-law of this of the boss as the new leader. And of course, so we jump forward. And so Matsuka, he gets out of jail and he finds out that, he was passed over for boss. And he's really pissed off at this because he was actually the senior guy. He was next in line to become the boss. So rightfully, he's a little bit pissed off that someone below him and a family member was made boss and stuff like that. So he's clearly upset with this. His best friend who turned down the job. So he's telling him this and, they have this really good relationship and stuff. And he's really not impressed with this whole thing. You kind of jump a little bit forward and there's also, he's so upset at this. There's actually an assassination attempt on Matsuga. And so now this kind of complicates things with his crew and of course the Yakuza and the boss and stuff. And there's all these internal struggles that are going on. And then one thing leads to another. There's a bunch of twists and turns within the narrative and which kind of makes up as to why he was assassinated and stuff. So anyways, I'll leave it right there. That's kind of the premise of the film. So my thoughts on Big Time Gambling Boss. Now, this is a totally different type of Yakuza film. Now, generally when you think of Yakuza films, you think of like, violence and, shooting and just crazy gang violence and, a whole pile of like, sleazy and stuff like that. No, this one is done a lot differently. It's the level of excellence in this film is basically can be chalked up in one word: tragic. This is a very, very tragic story. This is like a Greek tragic story. It's like a Japanese tragic story. So this one right here doesn't focus on the violence as much as it does as the narrative and the characters. It really does focus on the loyalty and betrayal and, friendship and things like that within the Yakuza in this film, which I thought was a really interesting premise. So this film is from 1968, and it's taking place in like the mid-30s, like 1934, 1935. So it has that really cool old school Japanese Yakuza kind of aesthetic to it and stuff. It doesn't have guns. It has a little bit of knives and stuff. And again, going back to, the elements that make up this film, it doesn't focus on the violent aspect. There is violent acts in this, which I think are very effective when they do happen within the film, but that's not the main focus point. It's really about loyalties and betrayals. Our main character, Matsuda, he's this very, very tragic character that, he went to jail because his loyalty to the Yakuza was so strong that he took the rap for this thing and went down for a few years and stuff like that. And he feels that, you know, since he did that, plus it's also the rules in the game. And that's the thing with this. It's all about the rules. You know, it's all about the loyalty to the rules and then the betrayal within those rules too. So it's kind of it's really interesting story. So like when he comes back, you really do feel his character and you feel his best friend. You feel their friendship. You know, they were bonded together by blood. They're blood brothers. And you really do feel the connection between these characters. Like the one guy, Nikeo, who got passed over, well, not passed over, who declined. You really feel his pain for Matsuda because he was the next in line, and you understand why he's all pissed off. And even though this movie only runs about 95 minutes, they really develop these characters quite well. They're very, very well done. You feel, you know, you feel these loyalties, and you feel, and when the betrayals happen, you feel that very strongly and stuff like that. So basically what's happening here, it's like one misunderstanding after another to really kind of break it down, the short and long of it. It's a very tragic story of these characters where they're following the rules, but it's also setting off a chain of events, which is just making everything so damn tragic. It's pitting best friends against each other. Lives are being lost, even though they probably shouldn't be. There's these internal power struggles between characters, and there's these disloyalties and stuff, and there's other things that are going on that are kind of leading into this, but it's pitting people that shouldn't be facing a tragic end against each other. And I really like this, man. It was a really cool narrative that, you know, you feel it, man. You really do feel it. Like this movie could have been 3 hours long in developing these characters and developing these relationships and really kind of showcasing these internal struggles within the Yakuza. You know, showing those betrayals and loyalties a little bit more, but you didn't have to. The way this thing was done was very well done, even though it ran 95 minutes. So, you know, some people would say this is probably a little bit slower because it does focus more on the characters and the development of, you know, the situations. But I'm fine with that because when the violence does happen, it's very effective. And like I said, though, like this one has such a tragic feel to it that you feel it right from the beginning of the film. It's almost like, you know, shit is never going to work out, and it doesn't work out for almost every single person in this film. That's the kind of the crazy thing about this one, is that more people's innocent lives and are lost due to these tragedies and almost misunderstandings within the Yakuza. That's the thing about being bonded by rules and, you know, loyalty, because when betrayals happen, they are so much more hard to understand. You're just like, no, you get it from his point of view. He was passed over. You know, why is there attempts on his life and stuff? But it's kind of cool how they do it. It's really interesting. I don't really want to give too much more away from it. You really need to check this out. I thought this was a really well done film. I was expecting something a lot different. I was expecting a lot more violent film, and that's not what I get, and I was not disappointed. So if you're expecting that, it's not what you're gonna get. So but yeah, so there is a bunch of features on here which I'll show and things like that. But all in all, man, transfer is fantastic on this. I thought the acting was great in this film overall. One thing about this movie that's really interesting, that the majority of the characters in this film are so well developed, and that you actually like the majority of the characters. So there's one or two characters that are hard to like. You know, they're meant to be disliked. There's just actually this one character. I don't want to give away who he is and what his job is in the narrative is, but he has like a Hitler stash. He literally has a Hitler stash, and it's like they're accentuating it so much in the film. It's not comic relief or nothing. It's just the way it is. It is the 30s, which actually made sense because I think that style was in the 30s, obviously with Hitler. But it was funny to see a Japanese like Yakuza leader with like one of those things. It just kind of made me laugh. I was like, there's there's a contrast here a little bit. But all in all, man, this was really damn cool. I really enjoyed this thing. Yeah, it's sad. It keeps you thinking, man. After you watch the film, you're like, man, that shit probably shouldn't have went down like that, but it really did. And unfortunately, that's what happens when you're bonded by blood. You know, so Big Time Gambling Boss, really, really cool film, Toei film. Yeah, you know, it's got the guy from one of the guys from Lone Wolf and Cub in this film too. So actually, that's the other thing too. Like, I'm so bad with Japanese names, but you recognize a lot of the people in these films. It's like watching Shaw Brothers films. There's like everybody in those films you recognize from all sorts of films. I can never pronounce their names, so I'm so bad for it. But yeah, lots of recognizable actors in here. Really great acting. The aesthetics great. The music really, really works in this. But again, slower pace, which I feel actually benefits this type of narrative. So yeah, I'm coming in at a 9 out of 10 on this one. I thought it was a really well done film. So Big Time Gambling Boss. If you're wondering what this is, that's just they're doing the Obi strips, which is actually kind of cool. You don't really see those on media releases. You see that on like vinyl and CD releases from Japan. Not usually movies. So that was kind of an interesting thing. It is removable. It does come out of the case and stuff. That is the reversible, which you guys have already seen. So yeah. So anyways, I am blabbling on. But Radiance Films, check them out. Awesome stuff right here. And that's going to do it here for episode 15, guys. If you guys like Accusa films, give it a shot. It's different, but if you like narratives and tragic stories, you should enjoy. All right, guys, that's going to do it here. I'll check you guys next episode, episode 16. And as usual, deuces.